Hello everyone and welcome to the lesson. We will, in our today's session, answer question number 2 from the April 2022 company law paper. In our last session, we answered question number 1. Question 2A reads, summarize 5 circumstances under which a company might be liquidated under the just and equitable ground, 10 marks. B, state 4 particulars found in a certificate of registration of a foreign company, 4 marks. C, highlight 6 rules governing payment of dividends, 6 marks, total 20 marks. Let us first take question A. Circumstances under which a company may be liquidated under equitable and just ground. What are the circumstances that could lead to liquidation or winding up of a company on just and equitable ground? The first obvious ground for winding up or liquidation of a company is if the company engages in fraudulent and illegal activities. Fraudulent and illegal activities or purposes. Where a company was formed to pursue a fraudulent or an illegal purpose, then that company can be liquidated on equitable and unjust ground. Fraudulent and illegal purposes. The second circumstance is deadlock in management. Deadlock in management and membership, where the company's shares and voting rights are equally divided between 2 persons or 2 groups with irreconcilable differences, then it would be liquidated. Where there is deadlock, where there are 2 interest groups, and that could be the membership or the shareholders and the management. When there is a deadlock where the management and the shareholders of the company are not in agreement and they have equal powers, then such a company can be liquidated on equitable and just ground. The third circumstance is failure of substratum. Failure of substratum. Now, if the paramount or if the principal purpose for which the company was incorporated fails or is no longer attainable, then such a company can be liquidated under equitable and such a ground. Substratum is a principal purpose for which a company is formed. It is a paramount purpose. If that purpose cannot be attained, if that purpose is no longer unattainable, then the company can be liquidated. Number 4, suppression. Suppression, or let me say oppression. Oppression of the minority. Oppression of the minority. If it is proved that the affairs of the company are being conducted in a manner that prejudices the minority, then such a company can also be liquidated. Loss of confidence in management, in the management of a company. We know managers are appointed by the owners to run the affairs of the owners on their behalf. All right? But where members have justifiably lost confidence in the management, then such a company can be liquidated if the members so decide. Number 6, we are discussing circumstances under which a company may be liquidated. All right? We've mentioned 5 circumstances. Number 1, fraudulent and illegal purpose. Number 2, deadlock in management and membership. Number 3, failure of substratum. Number 4, oppression of minority. Number 5, loss of confidence in management. So, candidates, these are 5 circumstances. 5 circumstances. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many marks? 10 marks. 10 marks. Let's move on to part B of this question. State 4 particulars in a certificate of registration of a foreign company. 4 marks. Particulars. Particulars found in a certificate of registration of a foreign company. This was pretty easy question. Particulars. Particulars. Now, what are the details that you would find in a certificate of registration of a company? Of course, it's obvious that you need to have the name of the company. If a company is to be registered, then the company must have a name. That is the first particular. First obvious particular is the name of the company. The name of the company. If it is Manifested Publishers Limited, then that is what you would expect to find in a certificate of registration of such a company. Do you understand? The name. Then you may have the company's registration number. Which is a unique number. Every company has a number. We have the name of the company, then the registration number, which is a unique number that identifies such a company. It's the same way as a student, you have a registration number at the examining body. It's a unique number. Then if it's registration, then you may also find the date of registration. Date of registration. So if it is a certificate of registration, then there has to be the date when the company was registered, the date of its registration as a foreign company. When was it incorporated? When was it registered as a foreign company? The date of registration. Then there has to be indication in the certificate of the fact that the company is registered under the Act. The fact that the company is registered under the Act. The fact that the company is registered under the Act as a foreign company. These are 4 important particulars. All right, the fact that the company is registered under the Act as a foreign company, 4 particulars found in a certificate of registration of a foreign company. Number 1, the name of the company. Number 2, company's registration number, which is a unique number. Number 3, date of registration as a foreign company. Then lastly, the fact that the company is registered under the Act. 4 particulars, 4 marks. 4 particulars, 4 marks. Let's move on to part C of this question. Highlight rules and 6 rules. Highlight 6 rules governing payment of dividends. Rules governing payment of dividends. C. Rules governing payment of dividends. Now, learners, dividends is a reward that is paid to the owners of a company for their risk to invest in such a company. At the end of every year, you may, the management or the shareholders, together the management may agree that they be paid certain amount of money as a reward for their investment in a company. Now, there are certain rules that guide the payment of dividends. Okay? There are various rules that govern payment of dividends. And one such rule is in relation to declaration of dividends to be paid out of the profits. All right? Dividends by a company for any financial year can be paid or declared only out of profits of the company of that year arrived at after providing for depreciation in accordance with the provisions of the Act. Do you understand that rule? Declaration of dividend to be paid out of the profits. All right? The dividends by a company for any year can be paid or declared out of profits of the company of that year arrived at after providing for depreciation in accordance with the provisions of the Act. So dividends are paid from profits, but there is certain conditions. One of which I have mentioned, that the dividends should be paid for any given financial year out of profits, all right, after providing for depreciation. So you have to provide for depreciation before paying dividends. In other words, dividends cannot be paid out of profits before depreciation is provided for. Depreciation. The next rule is in relation to transfer. Transfer to the transfer of profits to reserves. Transfer of profit to reserves. Transfer of profits to reserves. A company candidates may, before declaration of any dividend in any financial year, transfer such percentage of its profits for that financial year as it may consider appropriate to the reserves of the company. All right? That's a guide. Transfer of profits to the reserve. A company, before declaring dividends can transfer part of the profits to reserves of the company. Another rule then related to that is in relation to declaration of dividends out of reserves. Declaration of dividends out of reserves. Declaration of dividends out of reserves. A company can pay dividend out of its reserve fund created out of the undistributed profits of the company for any previous financial year or years. That is arrived at after providing for depreciation as required. So that is a guide, that is a rule. A company can pay dividends from its reserves. Another rule is in relation to the payment of dividends out of capital profits. Payment of dividends out of capital profits. Payment of dividends out of capital profits. What do we mean by capital profits? Now, the profits or the profits arising out of the sale or revaluation of capital assets is termed as capital profit. When you sell assets and you make profit out of it or gain, then that is capital profit or capital gain. So that's the meaning of capital profits. And capital profits may be utilized for the purposes of declaring dividend, provided that they have been realized in cash. So if you have sold an asset or assets and you have sold such an asset at a gain or at a profit, then the capital profit can be used to pay dividends only if the capital profits have been realized in cash. Okay? After it has been done what? It has been realized in cash. And such remains profits after revaluation of all the assets and liabilities, and that there is nothing in the articles of association of the company prohibiting their distribution among the shareholders in the shape of dividends. So before paying or declaring dividends out of capital profits, then the company must ensure or ascertain that such payment is not prohibited by the articles of association. And the payment of dividends out of profit should only be paid if the capital profit has been realized into cash. Those are two important conditions or rules. So payment cannot just be made, dividends cannot be made, declared or be paid out of capital profits before meeting the conditions I've mentioned. Yet another rule is that dividends can only be declared only at the annual general meeting. Annual general meeting. Dividends can only be declared at the annual general meeting. This is a meeting of the shareholders of the company. Okay? The sixth rule is that a company shall not declare dividends on its equity shares. A company shall not declare dividends on its equity shares in case of non-compliance of provisions relating to the acceptance of deposits, till such time the deposits accepted have been repaid with interest in accordance with the terms and conditions of the agreement entered into with the depositors. So at no point should the company declare its dividends out of equity shares. So these are 6 rules governing payment of dividends. Number 1, dividends should be paid from profits after providing for depreciation. Then there is number 2, transfer of profits to reserves. Dividends can be paid after the company has transferred part of the profits to the reserves, which are the undistributed profits. Then there is declaration of dividends out of reserves. We have payment of dividends out of capital profit. There are rules in relation to that. Dividends can only be declared out of at the AGM. Dividends can only be declared at the annual general meeting. Then lastly, a company shall not declare dividends on its equity shares. These are 6 rules, 6 marks. 6 rules, 6 marks. And you can see, candidates, this was a straightforward question. Students who sat for this paper had an easy time because that was an easy question to do. Thank you for attending this lesson. In our next session, we are going to answer question number 3. God bless you. Bye-bye.